Another big show today, running a little bit behind, but Caleb has been moving heaven and earth to get us in here and on the air today. We will be welcoming Seth Dillon, the CEO of the Babylon Bee, the world's most trusted, factually accurate news source. He speaks throughout the country. You can follow him on babylonbee.com and also Seth Dillon on X. Gad Saad, professor of evolutionary biology, joins us. He has some interesting new titles. I was supposed to point those out to you today. I don't have it yet. Where is it? There you go. His new title is Global Ambassador for the Northwood Idea and Visiting Professor at Northwood University. There's his new title. He'll tell us about that. But mostly, I wanted to talk about his zoological theory, a mating strategy called the sneaky effer theory. Actually, it's a well-founded observation about mammalian systems, and it appears to be afoot in modern America, and particularly as it pertains to the ideologies that have swept across the country. We'll look into that and more right after this. Be right back. Our laws as it pertains to substances are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want to help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say. I'm excited to bring you a new product, a new supplement, Fatty. I take it. I make Susan take it. My whole family takes it. This comes out of, believe it or not, dolphin research. The Navy maintains a fleet of dolphins, and a brilliant veterinarian recognized that these dolphins sometimes developed a syndrome identical to our Alzheimer's disease. Those dolphins were deficient in a particular fatty acid. She replaced the fatty acid, and they didn't get the Alzheimer's. Humans have the same issue. And we are more deficient in this particular fatty acid than ever before. And a simple replacement of this fatty acid called C15 will help us prevent these syndromes. It's published in a recent journal called Metabolites. It's a new nutritional C15, pentadecanoic acid it's called. The deficiency that we are developing for C15 creates something called the cellular fragility syndrome. This is the first nutritional deficiency syndrome to be discovered in 75 years and may be affecting us in many ways, and as many as 1 in 3 of us. This is an important breakthrough. Take advantage of it. Go to fatty15.com/Dr. Drew to receive 15% off a 90-day starter kit subscription, or use code Dr. Drew at checkout for that 15% off, or just go to our website, drdrew.com/fatty15. Seth Dillon, CEO of the Babylon Bee, babylonbee.com, and also Seth on X at Seth Dillon. He lives in Florida, 2 sons, wife. You can, again, read more about him at the Babylon. Check it out. Seth Dillon, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
It must be astonishing to you that what has in the past looked like pure satire has been the so-called truth as published through the eyes of mainstream media. It's almost like it's like almost like you guys don't have to do anything anymore because mainstream media has become a satire of itself.
That's very true. We read headlines all the time as we're kind of scanning them to see, what's in the news and what we should be joking about. And sometimes the headlines themselves seem like a joke. It's exaggerated. It's become kind of like a caricature. The reality itself has become kind of like a caricature, which makes it hard to caricature a caricature. So our job is more difficult than it's probably ever been. Yeah.
That's exactly what I was figuring you would say. So, but by the same token, I would argue that mockery has never been more important. And I would love you to talk a little bit, I don't know if you are so comfortable, really laying this out, but the morality of mockery in the present day world seems to me an interesting topic. Not only is it justified, but it is exquisitely important, and I want to drill down on that. Tell me about the defense of mockery.
Yeah, I'm glad that we agree on that point, because you do actually get a lot of people who think that it isn't defensible and that it isn't a tool that we should be using because it's mean and cruel and whatever. But I just couldn't disagree with that more strongly. I agree with what you're saying, that mockery is necessary. And one of the reasons I think it's so necessary is because when you take bad ideas seriously, you end up with catastrophic consequences. And so one of the ways of combating bad ideas isn't just to, employ reason and refutation to try to shut them down, which is obviously, something that should be done as well. But in addition to that, ridicule is an extremely effective way of addressing bad ideas, exposing the foolishness for what it is so that it isn't taken seriously. You're doing culture and society a great good, I think, when you do that. Because one of the reasons we've wound up in this place where, the headlines that we're talking about are so outrageous, they're almost impossible to satirize, is because there are things that we should have been laughing at that we lauded. And so I actually think there's a moral imperative to engage in mockery when there are bad ideas that are flourishing and having catastrophic consequences in the culture.
And when you use mockery, I imagine you would consider it sort of low-hanging fruit, or maybe even failure, if you have to resort to ad hominem mockery. I would imagine that would be the most serious transgressors. The mockery is directed at the notions and the ideas, right?
Typically, yeah. There are some public figures we make fun of just to make fun of them because sometimes, people deserve to be made fun of. Generally speaking, it's the ideas. I was trying to frame it in a particular way, saying, we're ridiculing bad ideas. It's the bad ideas that need to be dealt with because they have the catastrophic consequences. And so what you're trying to do is, sometimes a person will be part of that story. There may be a person who's advancing a bad idea. And so your satirical mockery of their idea involves them and references them. But you're not necessarily picking on a person to tear a person down, make them feel bad about themselves, something like that. Generally speaking, the satire is targeted at the ideas themselves. And I think it's important for the same reason. I quote C.S. Lewis all the time when he said that good philosophy must exist if for no other reason than because bad philosophy needs to be answered. And I think it's exactly why satire is necessary, is because bad ideas need to be answered. And ridicule is one of the most effective ways to do that. It really does a great job of showing people just how stupid or foolish a particular idea is.
Yeah, it's almost a shorthand argument. And unfortunately, we live in a time when people will not tolerate careful argumentation. They immediately start to attack back with ad hominem arguments or accusations, or, you're part of a bad group, or you're whatever. It's not argumentation. So the only thing left really is sort of pulling the curtain back with a little bit of mockery, and that does tend to get through.
Well, and it's also kind of a last resort in the sense that a lot of the ideas that we're engaging with right now are such insane ideas. They're advanced by people who have abandoned reason and rationality on purpose. They're looking you square in the face and they're telling you that 2 and 2 make 5. They're saying these crazy things. They're denying reality. And so what reason in that person are you going to appeal to and having a serious discussion with them? And so you're probably not going to change their mind by engaging in serious argumentation with someone who's thrown reason out the window, where they've thrown logic out the window. So, and you may not even change their mind by mocking their bad ideas, but you can have an impact on the conversation by just showing how bad the ideas are. And that's where I think, mockery is
showing other people.
Exactly.
Again, that's why I sort of think of it as kind of pulling the curtain on these things. I always think, as my model in my head is always, how would I address a flat earther? And sometimes they do use careful argumentation. Their problem is, because there's so much motivated reasoning, that they will go back to, for instance, they at one point took a very fancy gyroscope that was going to predict this certain finding if the Earth was not flat, which it of course did. And then their argument was, well, there's something wrong with the gyroscope, of course. So there's no, you're going to have to, now it's time for mockery. That's it. You can't, if you're going to be, going down that path, we have no choice. Really, they and sometimes leave you no choice. Who is in your crosshairs particularly right now?
Oh man. Well, we never just single out. We never just single out a particular idea or person. We do. There are certainly politicians that we hit more often than others. It's usually the more prominent ones leading the parties on both sides. we had a lot of fun with Biden and Kamala Harris in the lead up to the election, and with Trump too. We do a lot of Trump jokes. People think we're fully in his corner, and of course, I was supportive of Trump and I voted for Trump, but we're still willing to make fun of him and still poke fun at him, because I think you don't want to only punch the other way. You have to be willing to hit your own side and hold them accountable too. Some of the issues in the culture, though, I mean, one of the ones that I think has required and lacked a lot of satirical attention, a lot of comedic, combating, is the gender ideology stuff, the radical gender ideology. We saw so much of that being taken very seriously, and so many people being afraid to even address the issue, because you're going to be considered to be engaging in hateful conduct or spreading misinformation or something like that. And so the censorship regime was really discouraging that. And then you had the comedians who were all kind of propping up the narrative. And I was really encouraged when I saw, like, Bill Maher, for example, when he told a joke about how, we can't be affirming kids and what they think they are or want to be when they're 8 years old. Otherwise, if we did that, the world would be filled with cowboys and princesses. And he's like, when I was a kid, I wanted to be I wanted to be a pirate. Thank God no one scheduled me for peg leg surgery and eye removal. And I thought that was such a great joke. And in a lot of ways, it's funny, but it's also pretty profound that he told that joke, because what he was doing is he was basically kind of, poking at and chipping away at the validity of an idea that we shouldn't have been taking seriously in the first place. And he was doing it at a time when, it's considered hateful conduct to do it. And so that's why, there's a quote from Orwell that really resonates with me. He said, "Every joke is a tiny revolution." And I think that a joke like that at that time, when there's something that you're not supposed to be talking about, it's a sacred cow, it's something you're supposed to take very seriously, those are the things you must be joking about. Those are the things we shouldn't be taking so seriously. And so taking that's what's got to be in the crosshairs at any given moment. So whenever you have, these shifts in the culture and the changes in, values and radical ideas being, promoted by either the left or the right, those are the things that need to be in the crosshairs.
Yeah, during the darker days of COVID, I just kept saying out loud, "Where are the comedians? What happened to the comedians? Where are they?" And I think
they were doing a song and dance promoting the vaccine. That's what they were doing.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's what the late night was doing. That's for sure. But I really think three people, maybe you want to add to the list, were responsible for giving us permission to move out. It was Chappelle initially. Really, Chappelle gave us a lot of permission. It was Bill Maher, and it was Joe Rogan. Those are the three people that literally behaved as leaders that led us slowly out of the darkness, and are still doing and still playing that function, I would say.
Yeah, I would have named the same three guys. And I think probably one advantage that they had over a lot of the maybe smaller name people that don't have the same kind of platform that they have, is that they're almost like too big to cancel. You try to, good luck canceling Dave Chappelle. If you try to shut him down, he's going to become all the more powerful and influential than he was before. And that tends to be the case with these efforts to suppress. You end up amplifying, but it's more exaggerated the more prominent a person becomes and the bigger audience they already have. And so I agree with you, though. They were willing to kind of go out of lockstep with what the narrative was and challenge it in a humorous way, in a lighthearted way, and that brought a lot of people to kind of see what was being hidden from them very deliberately.
Well, in a thoughtful way, and I feel like that's what you guys try to do. You try to really. How do topics get prepared in the Babylon? Because there a writer's room? I just imagine a room where stuff's being thrown around. Or are you sitting at your computer all night? How does it work?
Yeah. Well, I like what you said about it in a thoughtful way too, because a lot of the way that guys like them or us will be denigrated is to suggest that we're hateful and that we're telling these jokes from a place of hate. And
that is getting to be, but the hateful thing is getting to be an old-fashioned way of discourse. I mean, there's so much. Our culture has been so ossified for about 15 years now that some of these ideas and strategies you can mock for being old-fashioned, like old-timey. That's an old-timey idea. Stop it. That was 2 generations ago now.
Right. But the idea is that humor is harmful, that humor hurts people's feelings, that people deserve to have a safe space, that they have a right to not be offended that trumps your right to speak freely or to challenge bad ideas. And there's a lot of that going. It's, that was cited as the reason why, it's the reason Jerry Seinfeld gave for not playing, college campuses anymore, is because you have this kind of safe space culture that exists, especially among young people, where they're not willing to laugh at jokes that poke at the sacred cows. They're certainly not willing to laugh at themselves. They take themselves way too seriously. And so it's the excuse that is used to try to cancel or censor voices that are saying things that they don't want to hear, is that it's hateful, it's harmful, it's misinformation. You check all the boxes. But it has been thoughtful and it hasn't been hateful. I think I think the best way to love somebody is to tell them the truth. And one of the gentlest ways to do that is to use humor. And so I wouldn't suggest for a moment that we just, we hate so many people on the left that we make fun of them so aggressively. No, it's not about that at all. It's because we care about the direction that culture is going in. We want to speak truth to a post-truth culture, and humor is a great way to do that. And that's one way of actually loving people and caring about people is, I don't actually want young people to succumb to bad ideas that are gonna rather than build up resilience in them and prepare them for life, will make them more susceptible to problems and lead them down a path of despair and destruction and ultimately to death. I don't want to see that. And so, if humor can play a role in the conversation and preventing some of that, then that's a great thing. And it certainly shouldn't be denigrated as harmful or hateful. But back to your original question about, how do we do this, and what is the process? I mean, we have a team of writers, and our writers are just kind of scanning the headlines and looking at what's going on, and the joke is in the headline. You have to nail it in the headline, and so we pitch headline after headline after headline, and very few of them actually get published. We have to sift through them and toss the bad ones, and there's lots of bad ones. But when the good ones kind of rise to the top, and we agree that this is one we should run, we'll draft up the article, do the Photoshop for the image, and roll it out there. So we publish roughly 6, sometimes up to 8 articles daily. You can't do too much satire; you'll overload people a little bit. So a handful go out every day.
You guys do this beautiful job of you're scrolling along, you see the headline, you go, is that they say that? Is that real? Is that a real headline? that you guys do a brilliant job with that. That's what I love about it. And really, I would say 6 times out of 10, I'm not sure. Sometimes I think you just pull it right out of the headlines because that's how insane things are. Well, but I want to. Go ahead. Sure.
Oh, I was just going to say that it's kind of the mark of good satire. Sometimes it's a criticism of satire. Oh, your jokes are too believable. You're trying to mislead people on purpose. But there is truth to it, and that's why it's funny. There's truth to it. That's why it's funny. And satire is designed, especially news satire, because we're mimicking a news publication. That's what we're doing. It's got to make you do a double take where you look at it as you're like, wait a minute, is that real? And then you realize there's a punchline there. It's actually a joke.
Look at that. Brilliant. Wait, go back to the omnibus bill thing. Go back to that because I feel like you're gonna have a lot of traction on the omnibus bill going forward. I was thinking about it as we were heading into this interview. I thought, oh, that bill, there's so much there for you guys.
I love it.
Hysterical.
The headline for the people on the podcast, the headline says, RFK Jr. advises children to leave out 8 strips of bacon and a bowl of beef tallow for Santa this year.
hey, I would say for a big fat man, that's a good idea.
Paleo Valley beef sticks.
Oh, yeah.
6-year-old saying, why don't we just get, oops, there it goes. Why don't we give everything away for free? Surges to top of Democratic polls. Yeah, again, that one could have been a possibility. But I do also believe, you said this is a post-truth world. I do believe that truth, and of course, common sense is reasserting itself. I do believe it does feel like it's coming on back. And part of that, by the way, is the resilience issue you were sort of tilting at, that we know now as a mental health axiom that exposure is what humans need to develop resilience and mental health. So we must expose them to things that make them anxious and they don't like. Not the opposite of that, which is destroying people.
Right. I heard a great quote. I think it was, I think his name is Scott Peck. Does that name ring a bell to you? I think he's a psychiatrist, but he said that mental health is...
Scott Peck.
Yes,
Scott Peck. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, mental health is the process of staying dedicated to reality at all costs. I like that quote. You're staying tied to reality, staying tied to what's true, because that's, so much of poor mental health is having a mistaken perception of yourself or of others or the world and the influences that are affecting you, and what you can control and what you can't control. All of those things play into mental health. And I do think, I'm optimistic about this. I do think, the pendulum will swing back the other way, and it started to swing back the other way in terms of people re-engaging with reality and deciding actually, the truth does matter, and there are harmful effects if we lose sight of that.
The way I've always said it was, mental health is being able to flexibly manage reality on reality's terms, not on your terms, but on reality's terms. And if you can do so, you're more healthy. There's a doxing story with you guys too. Go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead. Finish your thought.
You mentioned the resilience thing. I mean, when you teach people these harmful ideologies and you get them to buy into things that aren't rooted in reality, you do affect their ability to develop character and resilience, and like you said, so you end up in this very fragile mental condition as a result of that. And so that is, you have to underscore the importance of that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I couldn't say, I say it all the time, and we have done a couple generations a grave disservice, and they should be pissed. They should remember it. They should never let it happen again. So there was a doxing incident with you guys. Is that right? Here it is. Queen Elizabeth asked if she's taken. Whoops.
That's not right. That's not it.
Wrong one. I threw it up on screen. I was laughing so much. It's the fact that we can everyone can laugh at themselves on this site. It's that headline says Queen Elizabeth asked if she's taken ivermectin for COVID. Responds with a definitive nay.
Huzzah, Queen Elizabeth! Huzzah. Can you put the doxing headline up there? Is there something going on with that, Caleb?
I'm going to find it next. Keep going.
Well, I can tell you what happened. I mean, we have, you mentioned at the start of this conversation that the real headlines seem really crazy to the point where you question whether or not they could be satire. And that was kind of the reason why we gave birth to this new site, NOTE The Bee, which is kind of a sister site adjacent to the Babylon Bee, which reports on those crazy stories that should be satire but somehow aren't. It's like this humor-based entertainment site.
Oh, and you know what? I got to tell you something. It's a little confusing because I follow both The Bee and NOTE The Bee, and I start getting confused about what the real headlines are. I really do.
I know.
It's NOTE The Bee. Yeah, Babylon Bee blasts Southern Poverty Law Center after left-wing group doxes anonymous writers. Oh yeah, I remember this one. Go ahead, finish your thought.
Yeah, so the SPLC, they started reaching out to me and to our writers, and it was specifically the writers who work for NOTE The Bee, right? So NOTE The Bee actually publishes, real news stories. It, like I said, it's a humor-based entertainment site, but we cover, real stories that are kind of outrageous, and we offer a lot of commentary as well. And we have several part-time writers working for that site who have day jobs, and they write for NOTE The Bee on the side, and they do it anonymously. They do it using a pseudonym so that they're not exposed for some of the opinions and some of the things that they're doing, because they want to protect the safety of their job. We live in a cancel culture, and they don't want to get they don't want to lose their day job because of what they're doing on the side for us. And so for some of them, it's a privacy concern, it's a safety concern. And it's the ability to just speak freely without having to fear repercussions for that, given that they have something to lose, and they're trying to guard against that. And so we respect that and allow them to publish anonymously. And the SPLC started digging that they wanted to go after us because they didn't like a lot of the opinions. They said in their statement after they doxed us that divisive commentary like ours has no place in society. And they've elsewhere said, one of their senior fellows at one point was caught on camera saying that their goal is to completely destroy the people that they target. And so, this was an effort. It wasn't an effort to, in the public interest, we're going to release, information for transparency so that what's going on. This was a deliberate effort to intimidate and suppress the voices of these writers who say things that they don't like. And so what they did was they sent emails to our staff, to myself included, and said, you guys are publishing headlines like this and stories like this, we actually dug around in the code on your site, and we're able to sniff out who the writers are that are associated with these pseudonyms, these anonymous profiles. And so we've connected names, addresses, workplaces, all of this stuff to these writers, and we're going to do a story on this and expose this. Do you have comment? So they ended up publishing that story, but not before I got out ahead of it and said, look, the SPLC is a hate-driven smear factory that tries to intimidate people and chill speech by threatening them with penalties and consequences, including, deplatforming and cancellation, by putting them on this hate watch list. And they're doing this with our writers, and they're trying to intimidate our writers, and we think that's messed up. So I got a statement out there ahead of them publishing this thing, which was great, because it ended up getting like 17 million views, and then their post ended up getting like 50 likes. So I think we kind of won the PR battle on that one.
But I think you're going to have to keep it up, because it seems like the SPLC is lost. It's like a lost cause, and it needs to be sort of put in its place, lest it be something that do some serious harm to other human beings.
It's done harm. I mean, it's a scam. There are organizations that have actually faced violent attacks as a result of some of the reports. There are charitable organizations, great charitable organizations like the Alliance Defending Freedom, who's defended us. They've represented us in multiple cases. They're on the hate watch list. They were unable to take charitable donations through Amazon Smile program, for example, because they were on this hate list. And that's really the purpose of what they do, is they're trying to make speaking freely and saying things that they don't like, that they disagree with, so costly that you're unable to do it. You get penalized for doing it, and so maybe you'll just shut up and go away. And that's censorship. It is oppressive. It's tyrannical.
Oh, yeah.
And they're trying to chill speech and get people to censor themselves, which I think is even worse. If we go along with that, if we cater to that, and out of fear, zip our own mouths shut, I think that's even worse than hard censorship. That kind of pervasive soft censorship. So. We were very upset by what they were trying to do with our writers, and I'm glad that we got as much public support as we did. And guess what? I think they only drew more attention to us and raised our profile and got more support behind us as a result of this, which tends to be the case. It backfires over and over again.
Is it surprising to you that or maybe the Babylon Bee was you anticipated this, but the degree to which free speech has been under attack?
It has surprised me. It surprised me the extent to which, well, not just free speech in general, but comedy in particular has come under attack. They're jokes. It's humor. We got booted from Twitter for a joke that we made that was considered hateful conduct, and they wanted us to delete it and take it down, or else we lost access to our account. And by the way, we were one of the few accounts ever, I think, that said, no, we're not going to do that. We are literally willing to die on this hill and lose access to our Twitter account, because we should be able to tell the truth. For one thing, there's truth to the joke that we told, and we should be able to. Comedy should be legal. We should be able to have humor in the public discourse, in the public square. And so we refuse to censor ourselves, and thank God for Elon coming in and buying the platform and setting us free, because we need that in our discourse. You shouldn't have people deciding what's true up front and what you're allowed to say. And you shouldn't have humorless scolds, pulling the levers to drop the floor out from under anyone who makes a joke they don't like.
What are the battles ahead for you guys?
Well, on the censorship side, thankfully we have X, which is a great fallback. I don't think Elon's going to be banning us for any of the jokes that we make. A lot of the battles are legal battles. At the state level, there's a lot of there are laws against either hate speech or misinformation, or misleading parody or deep fakes or AI created content that apply to satire, especially around election times. There's various state laws that are being passed along those lines. We just sued California over one, and we actually got that enjoined, so it wouldn't apply to us. But we have to fight those in a number of other states too. So that's really a big thing. And Alliance Defending Freedom, who I mentioned earlier, is representing us in that. So, and the SPLC hates us from all sides. And they're after even our lawyers.
Wow. It's sad to hear that something that's supposed to be protecting civil liberties is gone so completely upside down. I don't get it, but okay. So they must be dealt with accordingly, I suppose. Well, Seth, is there anything else before I wrap this up?
Yeah, my attitude is bring it
okay,
on.
Good. I'm glad you're there fighting it. I'm glad. It feels like it's a fight you're going to win, I think. But it's a dangerous fight, and people get hurt. And it's just so unnecessary. Alexis de Tocqueville was worried about this. He was worried about what he called the censorship of the public square. That although we had the most significant assertion of public free speech in the law, the reality was a little different because of the kinds of soft forces you're talking about. And he worried about that.
Yeah. I worry about, people having enough courage to fight back on this, because I think one of the biggest problems is people censoring themselves and doing the tyrant's work for him. And we need to embolden people and encourage them to speak freely, because this is a fight we will win if we go out there and fight it. And the fight for free speech, by the way, winning that fight is necessary every day, because it makes all the other fights we need to engage in possible. You can't can't win those other battles against those bad ideas if you can't speak freely.
I am super clear on that. And also, you can't get to the truth. As you said, it was a post-truth world, so no one was interested in that. Truth is reasserting itself. All right, Seth, appreciate you spending a little time with us. I'd love to see you again soon. And I love reading the headlines. They brighten my day. So, even Not the Bee, which I thought, till this moment, I thought was kind of a lighter twist on what you were doing. I didn't realize they were the actual headlines verbatim. It's truly unbelievable. But thanks again, and everyone follow Babylon Bee, follow Seth on X, and we'll see you soon.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it. So after a quick break, we're going to bring my friend Gad Saad, our friend Gad Saad, in here, evolutionary biologist. Let me get his title right as he said it to me, because he's very interested and proud of this. It is the Global Ambassador, visiting professor and global ambassador at Northwood University. The sneaky effort theory, which I think we'll be able to say the full word as we move towards the later half of the show. But this is a zoological mammalian theory. He's going to tell you about it after the break. Wellness company knows that taking charge of your family's healthcare is a top priority, and being rationally ready, and who knows what the future will hold for us. Now, TWC has a service to cover your family's medical needs, including and especially prevention. For just $100 a month, the One Wellness Elite membership includes 2 free medical-grade nutraceuticals per month, free prescriptions for over 800 of the most common medications, access to concierge telemedicine, available at a moment's notice, and a 15% discount on all supplements and the emergency kits. 15% off the emergency kits. That's quite a saving. So if you're spending $100 or more on supplements and meds every month, this plan will already save you money. If you sign up for a year, you'll save $200. And when you use the link, drdrew.com/TWC, you'll get 10% off the first payment to the One Wellness Elite membership. Check out One Wellness at drdrew.com/TWC and get 10% off your first payment. drdrew.com/TWC. It's all there.
That's brilliant. And thank you, Drew. Where's Dr. Drew? Where is he? Dr. Drew. Dr. Drew.
If you are still worrying about stocking stuffers, forget the candy canes, the sugar cookies. Santa loves beef sticks. Susan loves venison sticks. Jump on and order a sleigh full of Paleo Valley protein sticks or whatever great snacks your family will love from Paleo Valley. Go to drdrew.com/Paleo Valley for 15% off your first order and 20% off when you subscribe. Protein sticks, again, beef, venison, which are all grass-fed, finished, made from, and the 5 varieties of the beef stick. The flavors are there. In addition, pasture-raised chicken and pork, all low in calories, high in protein, dense in nutrients, free of chemicals or processed ingredients. They're carefully sourced, far superior to other jerkies out there. Paleo Valley also has some amazing superfood bars. We don't talk about those enough. The red velvet and the dark chocolate chip are delicious, and they're good for you. Susan loves the lemon. And be sure to have multi-purpose salted caramel chocolate or vanilla bone broth protein around for the tasty, warm holiday drink. It's like hot chocolate. We love it in our coffee every morning. Low, again, it's made from bones, not hides, carefully sourced, produced, and grass-fed again. Finished beef. Go to drdrew.com/Paleo Valley for 15% off and 20% off when you subscribe. drdrew.com/Paleo Paleo Valley. Welcome, my friend Gad Saad, to the program.
How are you, Drew?
I am great. I got to get your picture up here. There you are. So where are you as you speak to us now?
Well, I'm currently in Montreal, but thank you for pointing out to the fact that I've taken a 1-year leave from my home university, and my official affiliation is Northwood University, where I am, exactly as you said, visiting professor and global ambassador. So as an ambassador, you now have to call me Your Excellency.
Okay, Your Excellency. Thank you for correcting me. I will look forward to sitting in the taco stand in Laguna Beach that we frequent and referring to you loudly as Your Excellency. So I can't wait.
Drips from my mouth.
Yeah, of course. I went to college with Al Grimaldi, the Prince of Monaco, or now the King of Monaco. And he would get these letters that were like, His Royal Highness, His Excellency. We'd give him shit about it. In any event, I want to talk about a few things with you. First of all, the move to Northwood. I thought when you said you were coming down here, you might be following Jordan Peterson and his daughter and some of our other friends who are expatriating themselves to the United States. Is there any chance you'll get all the way here?
There are several possible exit strategies out of the frozen tundra, the parasitic frozen tundra, parasitic because the taxation system here is simply criminal. And so, yes, some things are being worked out, but not yet ready to make any final announcements.
And is your friend, Mr. Trudeau, we hear rumors down here that he might be stepping down, and whatever's going on up there might get better if he should do so. Is that for real, or is that rumor down here?
No, I think it's for real. What upsets me so much, though, Drew, is that even if he were to step down today, I wouldn't be in a celebratory mood, because the mere fact that he was able to be prime minister for 9 years is such an existential injury that even if he were to step down, I would never be able to accept the fact that this buffoon was our leader for 9 years.
And is he under pressure? Are people waking up to the buffoonery, and that's what's causing him to need to step down, or what's happening?
I mean,
there?
It's a bit of that. Certainly, his inner circle is starting to sort of turn against him. You know, his deputy prime minister and finance minister just resigned. That's not a good sign. He's lost a whole bunch of people from his cabinet, so that's happening. But contrary to what you just said, let me tell you a typical interaction I have with people in my neighborhood. I live in a neighborhood that has a lot of, quote, liberal Jews and so on. So they'll come up to me, Drew, and say, Professor Saad, thank you so much for your work. I'm such a big fan. I love all that you stand for. And I say, do you mind if I ask you who you voted for in the last 3 elections? Oh, we voted for Trudeau. So how is it that you could be such a fan of my work and such a fan of the positions that I hold, and yet vote for Trudeau? So there is a disconnect between people's beliefs and how they end up voting. And hopefully I'm participating in trying to create more, logic between those two positions.
Yeah, I think it is sort of mindlessness and mass formation. And a lot of people just want to go along to get along, and they just keep their head down and do what they think is right, and they really aren't thinking. Those the sheep, so-called, the ones that we can persuade differently, the 20% or so that are evangelists, they are lost. You can't do anything with them. But the people like your neighborhood, you should be able to persuade them to wake up a little bit. And when they do, there will be what Mark Andreessen calls a cascade phenomenon, where all of a sudden, as they're like waking up from a stupor, it's like, oh no, oh my God, we got to correct this. Is when they start seeing things as they really are.
And you see it a bit, for example, in how people are now removing their pronouns from their bios, right? It is now acceptable for me to disassociate from this ridiculous virtue signaling. And so to your point, I think you're starting to see that phenomenon take place.
And the Ukrainian flag and whatever, it's just starting to kind of, it happens fast here. You know, when Mark Andreessen was tweeting about it, and it caught my eye, and I thought, oh, he's right. It really is. It's a cascade phenomenon. It rolls on itself. And I remember it back in the 1980s, in the early 80s. it was mostly on an emotional level back then. I remember fall of 1980. So it was 6 months into the Reagan presidency. Fun and happiness suddenly returned. It just returned like that. I remember the house party I was in where the music that was playing and the way people were reacting was, I thought to myself, oh, something has changed dramatically. Now, then what people don't remember is Reagan was still hated and there was still an assumption that he was going to cause a nuclear war. And that went on for a while. And so this is different a little bit. There's been more of a sort of coming to awareness, sort of a really back to common sense and approximation of something I would call the truth.
Indeed. And speaking of sort of happiness and orgiastic joy and so on, as you know, 2 weeks ago, I was at Mar-a-Lago. Now, you might argue that, of course, anybody who's invited there is going to be a Trump supporter and so on. But notwithstanding that reality, you just felt as though everybody had this 1,000 pounds of existential weight lifted off their shoulders. People were having fun. We were, here I am sitting with, I don't know if you know who Neil Ferguson is, the esteemed historian, Sir Neil Ferguson. And here we were sitting like children doing the Trump dance and so on. So people are having fun. It's great to see that hope is back. Real hope, contrary to the Kamala Harris and Barack Obama nonsense hope.
So let's talk a little sneaky fuckers. Help people understand that observation and how it applies to human behavior.
Yeah, so let me give you sort of the background, the evolutionary biological background. One of the things that's really interesting is to study deception in nature, right? So for example, in my first book ever, The Evolutionary Basis of Consumption, I talk about aposematic coloring. So for the idea that some animals will evolve very, very bright colors, which is contrary to camouflaging, but they evolved those colors to say, hey, if you could see me in the Amazonian jungle, it's probably because I'm dangerous. It's probably because I'm venomous. Stay away. Well, guess what happens? Other animals will evolve, will co-opt that signal, even though they're not in the least bit venomous themselves, they will pretend to be by co-opting that particular aposematic color. Aposematic means a warning color. Okay. Or here's another kind of deception. It's called brood parasitism. The cuckoo bird, right, will take its egg, put it in the nest of another bird that doesn't in the least bit look like it, as long as it does it prior to a particular ontogenetic period. Once it hatches, even though it doesn't look at all like its own species, the hapless parents will raise it until maturity. So that's another kind of deception. There's another kind of deception.
And it tends to push out, and it also pushes out the other little birds, right? Doesn't it? So it gets a twofer.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And so one of the things that you do as an evolutionist, you engage in what's called comparative psychology. If you want to make a statement about human behavior, you study the behavior of our animal cousins to see that there is a homology or an analogy. Go ahead.
Let me ask you about that, because that's one of my, look, I was raised as a biologist. So the answer to any question was, what are the evolutionary forces creating whatever we're looking at? Just that's everything was sort of looked at that way. So of course, human psychology and human behavior would have to have some of those elements. But that has been under attack for the last 20 years as sort of a just so description of human behavior. What is happening with that assault?
You're exactly right. It's defined my entire career, right? For you and me, it's absolutely obvious that you can't study human behavior without ever invoking our biological reality, our biological imperatives. Yeah. Every single species would have to be studied by examining its phylogenetic history, but there's only one species where you could study it fully without ever invoking biology. It's called human beings. Where are we? Well, we're a bit better than when I started my career. When I first started my career, certainly housed in a business school, people viewed me like, what is this biology stuff you're doing in the business school? What does biology have to do with economic behavior or consumer behavior? So it's a bit better now, but these things take a very long time to be eradicated. So I think I've contributed to flipping some of my colleagues, but there's a lot more work to be done.
How about post-structuralism? Is it still as
it's on its way out? So in the early 90s, you used to have, for example, in consumer psychology, you'd have a lot of postmodern and post-structuralist and deconstructivist studies of consumer psychology. That's almost completely gone now. So you don't see it as much. You still see it in some esoteric fields in the humanities and queer studies and fat studies and ethnic studies. But in certainly in the business school and economics and so on, you don't see it. But do you want me to come back to the sneaky effers?
I do.
Yeah. So I was telling you about aposematic coloring and how you can evolve a deceptive signal there. I was telling you about brute parasitism with the cuckoo bird. And so as I was looking at, when I was writing The Parasitic Mind, I was thinking, what could explain the affectations of a lot of these male feminists who engage in what looks like something that we know from zoology from the 1970s. The official term is kleptogamy, the stealing of mating opportunities. But the zoological term, the more colloquial zoological term in the 1970s, I think the first one to mention it was maybe John Maynard Smith, the evolutionary biologist, was called sneaky fucker. Because what you would have, for example, you'd have a fish species that is made up of two types of males, two phenotypes of males. One male is the standard sort of dominant male, but there's another phenotype of a male that mimics the look of a female that can surreptitiously convince the dominant male that, hey, look, I'm just a girl. And then he provides him access to all the females. And here we're off doing the mating behind the back of the dominant male. And so once I identified that mating strategy that's been documented in the zoological literature, I said in The Parasitic Mind, aha, male feminists are exhibiting exactly that behavior. They're called sneaky fuckers in the human context, and therefore that theory was born.
It seems like it's a little more, I guess I don't have a good word for it, but subtle is the word I'm going to use, in the sense that it's a way of gaining acceptance and access to females by mirroring their points of view and mirroring their politics, and all of a sudden you're liked and you have access. It's even more social than, strictly speaking, biological reproductive. Obviously it would end up there, and that might be the motivation why we have that in our psychology, but it feels like it has a more global social impact these days.
Yes, in that it's true that you are internalizing these softer, quote, empathetic positions, so that hopefully you don't come across as being too intimidating, and hence in that sense you're being a sneaky fucker. But there is an empirical study that I'm hoping to do with one of my graduate students, where we're actually trying to demonstrate that the male feminist who applies the sneaky fucker strategy does have a different morphology from the classic, U.S. Navy SEAL. In other words, your morphology should say something about some of your political orientations. And actually, I cite some of the research in The Parasitic Mind that speaks to this. It turns out, Drew, this is really amazing research. This is not my own research, but some other guys, the political psychologists. You can tell the types of political and socioeconomic positions that men will take as a function of their physical formidability and their musculature. So, for example, the stronger I am, and there are very easy ways for us to measure physical strength, the stronger I am, the less likely I am to be egalitarian in my economic policies. The stronger I am physically, this is perhaps not surprising, the more I'm open to military interventionism. And so, in a sense, my morphology really does signal something about my political orientation.
I am thinking about your prime minister, both in terms of the morphology and in terms of his little speech. I think it was yesterday, where he describes himself as a committed feminist, and it looked odd right now. It looked like, yeah, good, you're a feminist, great, but this whole like, hey, look at me, I'm a committed feminist. Again, this leads me back to this theory I was suggesting, which is that it's about getting liked. It's a way to be liked. But if women are moving off of that position, you're going to look just dumb, like silly. It's going to look weird.
And it's funny, you know, one of the things that interests me, and it would be great to do an empirical study at some point, is what are the types of women who are likely to fall prey to the sneaky fucker strategy versus not. Yeah. Now, here's someone, I think we both know her. Do you know Megyn Kelly personally?
Very well, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, there is a clip when she came on my show when we were discussing Justin Trudeau, and she said something to the effect, I don't want that guy on top of me. That guy can't handle anything in the bedroom, or something to that effect. And I thought to myself, that's exactly what I would expect of Megyn Kelly, meaning that she can sniff out the sneaky fuckers and stay away from them. And yet other women completely fell prey to his quasi-charm. And so it would be a great study to try to explore what are the key characteristics that make a woman fall prey or not to this kind of approach.
And what I saw that interview, and what I saw Megyn Kelly expressing was actual disgust. So she would never go near something like that. So it's a really visceral, emotional thing. Now, Susan's mic was off, but she was having a huge reaction to what you just said. So where do you fall, Susan, in this whole lineup? Because you reacted to Megyn Kelly's comments.
I just love that she says stuff like that out loud.
You're ducking. You're ducking. So how would you respond to a sneaky fucker?
I don't know.
She doesn't want to answer. She's too polite.
She doesn't want to. For some reason, I don't know why she's. No trick. It's no trick. We're just doing an objective experiment right now, right here in real time.
Can I tell you a story that's opposite to the sneaky fucker that recently happened to me in Florida with my wife and children? We were celebrating our 25th anniversary. And we were at a restaurant on the beach. It was literally the night of our 25th anniversary. And this guy, the waiter, was like chiseled out of a ancient Greek narrative. I mean, he was 6'4", broad shoulders, little waist, beautiful ass. His fingers had muscles on them. And so I was saying, I think, Annie, I might leave you and go with this guy. And she's so polite and so sweet. She's like, he's okay, I guess. So I think maybe Susan is exhibiting that kind of respect.
Yeah, right. They're both sneaky fuckers when it comes to us. That's the problem. So this category has wide application, is what I'm saying.
He's okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Saad, do you know what a pick-me girl is? Have you heard of that term online?
Pick me girl? No. What is that?
That might be something similar, where it's kind of like, from what I understand in the internet circles, it's the type of girl that goes online and that's like very vocal about, oh, I love gaming, oh, I'm all into nerd culture, and she tries to really like get herself, embedded into a lot of, typically male spaces. And when you look at it, you can see, well, it's because of there's usually some sort of like a confidence problem that she's having. And to me, it just seems like it's the other side of this. There's another side of this that females tend to do.
But he said something really interesting, because she doesn't have to be a sneaky fucker. She's dealing with males. Exactly. All she has to say is, "I'd like you in, please." And so, but Caleb said she must have a confidence problem, which I think is exactly correct. She doesn't believe that she'd be picked, but all she has to do is raise her hand, and the man will be like, "Come on, let's go."
Speaking to that issue of the difference in how willing men are to mate with with women, vice versa. I don't know if you've heard of those studies that, I mean, the original ones were in the 70s, but they've been replicated many times. You walk on campus, a gorgeous guy or a gorgeous girl, and they just walk up to random people of the opposite sex and say, you know, I've noticed you and I'm very attracted to you. Would you like to go back to my room and just have sex? And almost every single male says yes. And I think, if I remember the numbers correctly, 75% of women say no, even if the guy is, you know, drop dead gorgeous. And so that gives you a sense of the evolutionary pressures that men and women have faced through our evolutionary history.
Yeah, and the current ethos wants to say that's all socially created. It's toxic masculinity. No. It's in all history, all cultures, all through time. This is and really, from my perspective, Your Excellency, it is the advent of antibiotics and hormonal contraceptives that allowed for some change in that characteristic. In that, for women, the choice to have a sexual encounter meant A, possibility of 18 years of burden, or B, a life-threatening illness. And those things have been sort of taken away, so it has increased the way they can express themselves.
And by the way, you're exactly right, Drew. And that in evolutionary biology is Robert Trivers' parental investment theory, which basically argues that if you want to know the pattern of sexual dimorphisms in any species, simply look at the sex that has to provide the greater minimal obligatory parental investment. In most species, it's the female, and therefore you have bigger males with less sexual restraint and so on. But then there are sex role reversal species where then you see the exact reversal of the patterns of sex differences. So in many bird species, the females are bigger, the females have more testosterone, the females keep a harem of males, and so on. And so that's the beauty of biological-based theorizing. With one explanatory, parsimonious explanation, you could explain patterns not only across human cultures, across species.
Occam's razor.
Occam's razor. Indeed.
The theory of parsimony is what we're both referring to. Well, listen, we got to kind of wrap things up here. We have to go catch a plane. What's on your radar going forward now? Is there a new book coming? Are you going to give a sneaky fucker article? Where is this all going?
Thank you for asking. So the parasitic mind was about what happens to our cognitive system once it is parasitized. I complete that story in my forthcoming book, Suicidal Empathy, where I argue that not only could our cognitive system be hijacked by these parasitic mechanisms, but our emotional system can be hijacked. And therefore, hopefully, I will complete the story of how we can be zombified.
Do you de-zombify? I love that. Do you talk about mass formation and these, mob theories and that stuff?
I mean, only in the sense that there is an element of a contagion in emotions, right? An emotional contagion, only in that sense. Basically, what I'm arguing, I know you have to go, is I argue that, look, empathy, when it is regulated within the appropriate norms, makes perfect adaptive sense. We're a social species. It makes sense that I have theory of mind, that I can empathize with your plight and so on. The problem with suicidal empathy is that it targets the wrong targets, and it's dysregulated in that it becomes hyperactive, and that leads us to all kinds of policy problems that we see today.
It becomes non-empathy at a certain point. It's really not genuine empathy. I want to be sure, my friend, that this global ambassadorship doesn't go to your head. But I became concerned when you tweeted a picture of Jesus on your thread and associated yourself with that image. I want to be sure you're okay.
Well, my wife will come up to me at times and say, should we call the construction company to build a better foundation for our house in order to support the weight of your ego? Choose your spouse carefully. You want someone with whom you can play with whom you could rib each other. Otherwise, marriage is a miserable enterprise.
And your kids must be approaching college pretty soon, right? Your daughter, at least, is that
My
right?
daughter is turning 16, and my son is turning 13. So not quite, but getting there. My son actually told us recently. He said, "You know, Daddy, or he said it to my wife actually. You know what, Daddy? I think I want to go to Johns Hopkins."
Okay, what's he want to study?
You might be happy to hear this as a physician. Right now, he's only 13. He's interested in neurosurgery.
Oh wow! Well, let me talk to him as that starts to happen. That's a pretty intense path.
You'll be the first one that he'll speak to. I can assure you that.
By all means, I would love it. And do they welcome the idea of coming down here and staying down here? I know they love Southern California.
Incredibly excited by it. They're fully in. They love it. You know, I've sort of inculcated them with, you know, the spirit of the United States from a very young age. I always take them with me on trips and so on. And so they're already almost American. So I think, yes, they're very excited.
You know, that spirit you're talking about, I thought it was interesting. I saw Jordan Peterson on Gutfeld the other night, and he was like, wow, you guys sure can change directions fast. You really are very flexible and you move. And I thought, yeah, that is something we can do here with that cascade phenomenon. And where is the university where you are the global ambassador? How do I come visit you?
I would love to, actually, for you to come. It's in Midland. Now, that may seem like in the middle of nowhere, which is true, but here is the little secret. Midland is where Dow Chemicals, their global headquarters. So because they've been there for...
Midland, Texas. Midland, Texas.
No, Midland, Michigan.
Michigan. Okay.
Midland, Michigan. It's
you know, that's up. There's another city. I've actually been there. There's another city right nearby. There's a big city. What the hell is what's by Midland? There's another city right there. Like,
is it Saginaw? Saginaw, maybe?
Saginaw. But I remember, I'll tell you why I was up there giving a talk. There's a school there. I don't remember which one. And there was sort of a little mini panic. It was in the weeks, a couple months after 9/11, and there was a weird mini panic going around that area that Dow was going to be bombed to try to release the chemicals from.
Well, that must be Midland then, because that's where it is now. So, but just to complete the story about Midland, so you would think you're going to be in farmland, but you've got this little gorgeous city with a gorgeous downtown with sushi bars and Italian restaurants, because they have to attract people from all over the world. And you're not going to be able to attract people to move there if you're not going to have a vibrant downtown. And so it's actually a beautiful place.
I'm right now looking at the map to try to figure out what I was doing there. But I was not at Midland.
Were you at Hillsdale, maybe? Hillsdale College?
I was nearby. I'm surprised how close it all is to the lake. So I'm imagining I must have been further. I don't know. It's weird. Give me 1 second. I'm fat.
Was it a medical talk you were giving, or what was it?
It was at a college. I was speaking at a college, I think. I think that's what my recollection is. But anyway, I can't. Well, you're going to be right there. Aren't you going to be in the sort of the hand of Michigan? Isn't that like right here in the hand?
That sounds about right. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Well, that'll be lovely.
Right go ahead.
I was going to say, I'll try to find an excuse to get out that way. That's all I'm saying.
Yes. And I will see you hopefully this summer in that Laguna Mecca of the restaurant.
All right. Laguna is generally a Mecca, so I look forward to that. And I look forward to seeing your whole family, in fact, so it'd be great. So I appreciate you spending a little time with you here. Thank you for the parasitic mind. Thank you for the sneaky fucker theory. And I'm looking forward to the toxic empathy. What do we call? What's the name of the book going to be? Does it have a name yet?
Suicidal Empathy.
Suicidal Empathy. Yeah, talk to you soon.
Thank you, sir. Take care. Ciao.
And we appreciate everyone, including our guests, putting up with our little technical issues today. You guys have been great on the Restream and on the Rumble rants. I'm watching you there. There's a lot of action on the rants. Susan,
on the YouTube and the X, and then the Rumble.
Have you been? Yes, we were gone. We were not on Twitch.
What the Restream is like.
I'm sorry, YouTube and X. We were not on Twitch today, but X, you can put your comments and we see them.
Come through, Caleb. I don't know what happened.
Maybe it's just a weird day. The Restream apparently has some problems.
Yeah, so Restream
That's fine.
changed. That was the issue yesterday. No excuses from the producer, but Restream changed yesterday.
If everybody needs
Fix
to
that.
know, Restream's where
Yeah.
all the platforms go up, except for
Yeah.
Rumble. Rumble's a
Fix
separate
that.
thing.
Today was a different issue, and I take all the blame.
Yeah.
Oh, these old flapping lips told me that Central Michigan University must have been where I was, which sounds about right. Because I remember speaking to Western Michigan, Central Michigan, Michigan State, I think. Anyway, so I've been to all those Michigan stools, and so that makes some sense. Stools. And on the rants, I'm watching you guys looking over there. Isn't that weird that I remember that about the fear of the Dow Chemical being bombed? Because you remember how many weird sort of mass formation theories went around in the aftermath of 9/11? Reasonably so. I mean, this thing happened that we didn't believe could happen, and all of a sudden everything seemed possible.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's put up the upcoming guest. At one point, I think we were going to talk to
Slowing down for the holiday. Happy holidays,
We are
everybody.
slowing down. Merry Christmas, everybody. But we were going to speak to the upcoming Surgeon General after I shut my mouth off about that. But I think she got rescheduled. As it stands, we're going to talk next Friday, which is when we come back. We're going to be gone across Christmas. We have to travel right now too, and we have a baby coming any minute.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm not pregnant. My daughter-in-law is having a baby. We're having a grandchild,
Mhm.
a little girl.
And we're going to talk a little
She's
bit about.
big.
We're going to talk a little bit about the veterans and PTSD and what's available out there. Matt Waltz has a program. We're going to talk about that. Salted Cracker's been rescheduled. Jeff Dye's coming in here. Got a lot of interesting people. I've been tossing over towards Emily Barsh, our producer, and she's been suggesting some really interesting guests as well. And if you want to introduce somebody or suggest somebody, contact at drdrew.com. We do check our comments there. And we appreciate you all being here. We've only got one show, I guess, left in the new year. Is that correct, Caleb?
No,
possible-
two.
What's the other
Yeah.
one?
A Friday and there's two more.
So these are all what's
ahead.
confirmed, but this calendar is going to get filled. There's a bunch of them that some of them
27th
we can't say yet, and yeah, some big ones coming
and the
up.
30th.
Okay.
And the
Okay.
31st.
We can't say them because they haven't been confirmed?
The 27th and the
That
31st.
and I think one of them might actually just now be under a court gag order until like a day or two before. I don't know how it works, but like we can't
We might
say
have-
it yet.
Whoa, tell me about that. Now I'm
and then,
fascinated.
My show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We might have to do my show instead because Rumble just said they got me an ad. So
Oh, great.
thank you, Rumble.
Let's do it. Maybe next Monday. Maybe that Monday the 30th or something?
No, Caleb said no, but
Oh.
I don't know. We'll see. It might have to be after the new
Maybe
year.
the 27th.
We're gonna have a new grandchild, so we're gonna be kind of hunkered down in a different city, unless I can get my hands on a studio. So
We'll work on that. And we're going to
we're
run a
waiting.
little
The
light.
moments we just don't. We want to be available.
So wait a minute. Is this the last show before Christmas? Yes.
Yes.
So Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
It's been a very interesting year. We appreciate you all being here with us. Thank you to X for
Hopefully we won't have anything bad happen with all those drones for Christmas.
thank you to X for posting the video now.
I'm
on the
hoping
show.
it's going to be a big light show on New Year's. They're gonna just put on a big light show. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
You all done?
Yeah.
All right. So, we appreciate you all being here. It's been a very interesting year, and we appreciate you supporting the people that support us. We appreciate you staying with us through these really interesting guests. I have continued to learn a ton through this show. Thank you to Caleb and Emily and Susan for producing this thing and brainchilding it and shepherding it along. It's been really, really an interesting experience, and it's been a privilege and a pleasure to be a part of it. And you all
Great,
who are watching
great year. Thanks to you guys who
are part
watch
of
and
it.
support our sponsors and keep us afloat and give us love.
And thank you to Elon for posting videos on X. It's been a major source for us there and for allowing that to be a platform where people can speak. And we are continuing our commitment to free speech in the new year. We'll see you one more after Christmas. And on the 27th, that's a noon show. It's an early show. We'll see you then.
Ta-ta.
Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.